Hey everyone, it's Andrew here in front of my analog Zettelkasten, sitting at my grandfather's desk. Sitting here, got my Ancient Past publishing hat. More to come there on that. But anyways, I want to talk about the topic of, can you change the way that you number notes in your analog Zettelkasten? The short answer is yes, but not without a significant amount of work. So a big part of why an analog Zettelkasten is so special, as opposed to a digital one, is that there are a lot of limitations with the paper, in terms of what can be changed, what can't be changed. Making big changes is pretty impossible with a analog Zettelkasten, which is why you probably would never want to do it. And with a digital Zettelkasten, you're constantly thinking about things you want to change. You're constantly thinking, how can I improve this from, the great system it already is? And that's where you run into basically a lot of distractions, is the way I like to think about it. Now, that being said, right now I am in the process of changing the way I number some specific notes. And there's essentially a couple different approaches you can do with that. You can essentially just start numbering all your new notes in a specific way and just go with that, unless it conflicts with the current way that you are already numbering your notes. So if you're confused, I'll try to explain this a little bit. Essentially, my specific use case, what I'm doing here with changing my notes, is I want to change the way that I order my Bible notes. So when I first started my Zettelkasten, this is I'm like 6 months into this, so hopefully there's not very big changes in the future. But this is a big part of my Zettelkasten is Bible notes. All of these notes are essentially on they're notes on passages of the Bible. You can see that's basically all the notes in the 1000 level category. These are ones I've already processed, but everything else is my other categories, which you see is pretty slim. But these are all my Bible notes. So the way I was thinking about this is, if I have a book that I am taking notes on, the Bible, that already has its own reference system in it, why do I not link that reference system up with the reference system of numbers that are in the Zettelkasten? Because essentially in the Bible, what you can do is you can say book, chapter, verse, and you can get down to a very specific part of the text in the Bible. So if I were to say, Jeremiah 25:3, that brings me to a very specific location within the book of Jeremiah and that specific chapter and verse. So how I want to do this is essentially make my numbering system match up with the Bible's reference system. This is all in a very larger attempt to basically create a Christian Zettelkasten, where people are able to take notes on the Bible in a very seamless and straightforward way. And part of that is a lot of experimentation, because from the research I've done, I haven't seen anyone do this before. So I'm sort of experimenting with things, which is usually not what you would do with a Zettelkasten, in terms of like experimenting with the numbering and the ordering, the structure. But essentially, when you get to the basics of how you number cards, there's basically three main rules. Every card has to have a number on it. No two cards can have the same number. And the numbers have to have a specific order to them, in the sense of, if you were to completely scatter your cards, you'd be able to look at the numbers and put them in the right order once again. So that's what you have as your rules that you absolutely have to adhere to. So if you're making a change to your notes where that wouldn't be affected at all, where you could just start numbering your notes a little bit differently and it wouldn't actually affect any of those three rules, that you wouldn't be doubling up on certain cards or changing the numbers or whatever, you could just make that change going forward. Essentially what I've done is I have kind of made that impossible for myself, where if I have a note on the book of Job, right? This is actually a bad example, because this one I wouldn't change. If I have a note on a specific passage of the book of Job, right? Let me straighten that out. how I have it today is I have the Bible reference in the corner, right? So this is Job 42, 5 through 6. And then I have a completely arbitrary numbering with my Zettelkasten. So 1318 is my notes on the book of Job, but then 3a is completely arbitrary. So that's, stemming from another note. But if I were to look at 1318 3a, I would essentially know that it's in the book of Job, but I would have no idea what verse it's referring to apart from this. So thinking of a future state, if I were to ever think, man, I just want to see my notes on the book of Job, chapter 42, maybe I'm looking at specifically verses 5 and 6, how do I find that? And really the way I have it now is if I were to continue building this and building this and building this, I would be lost. I basically have to sort through all of my notes in the book of Job and just look at those headers to try to sort through, okay, this one is on that verse, this is also in the same verse, and figure it out from there. That is not the foundation I want to lay for how I number these notes. So essentially, when I am reworking this, I am changing notes to have a chapter and a verse included within the note. So let me try to find an example for you guys here. So this is one I have already reworked. Get this out of the way. So this is a note on the book of Matthew, which is 1501. And basically for purposes of indexing, I have left the original number that I have on the card, but this is essentially my new way of numbering it. So this is the old way. This is the way that eventually is going to fade away, and I'm going to stop doing this. This is the new way I have it numbered. So I can look at this card, and I can see that this is on the book of Matthew, which is 1501, and then I have /C18. That refers to chapter 18, verse 18, and then this is the first note on chapter 18, verse 18. And then obviously this is a branch off from the first note, but that is a way to basically organize all my notes according to the references within my Bible and exegesis section of the Zettelkasten. This is something that I totally wish I would have started from the beginning. And part of the hope with this YouTube channel and the other work I do within the Christian Zettelkasten, which I'm figuring out, is basically figuring out a way to adapt the Zettelkasten to studying the Bible and to exegesis and to theology. So with theology, it's a little bit more straightforward because it's more of a loose structure and you can have notes clustered in the usual Zettelkasten way. But what I've found with Zettelkasten is there's a delicate balance, right, between letting your notes grow up naturally and imposing a structure upon them. The structure is just meant to keep things organized and keep things accessible for you when you actually go back to reference these notes. So that's what I'm attempting to do here with this numbering system. I'm attempting to make it so it's easy for me to go back and figure out essentially where specific verse notes are, so I'm not having to shuffle through a bunch of stuff and have trouble finding it. So that is what I'm doing now. But what I've made sure is that these new numbers don't conflict with anything else in my Zettelkasten. Like there would never be a card in here where I would do / and then start with a letter. That would never happen. So this is basically a unique way of numbering, and it's completely legit within the Zettelkasten framework because you have still an alphanumeric code, which is numbers and letters, but it's just a little different. So obviously I have a big stack to go through. I'm going to let you know how it goes. I'll probably do a fuller video on this once I figure out how to do this. Part of the reason I've been offline is got a lot of things in life that are busy, but also I'm just trying to figure this out for you guys. I really want this channel to be focused around how do you adapt this wonderful and beautiful Zettelkasten system to studying the Bible and growing in your knowledge of God, growing in your knowledge of theology, being able to write about it, being able to know what you think, being able to basically store up knowledge and store up wisdom. So that's my attempt to do it, and I thought I'd document this journey and also just share anyone who's attempting this and Really, I wouldn't recommend it, but that's part of the reason why paper is great, is because you have all these ideas like, oh, I could improve the Zettelkasten in this way, and then you're like, that would be a lot of work, so you don't. And that keeps you from those distractions. But when it is necessary, it is doable. It's just a major time investment. So I'm investing time that hopefully this will pay off in the future, but I want to document the journey. So enjoy.